What's up? As we welcome you into another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead Show, the Goon Ironhead and Booch Show today. As Chris Buchanani is kind enough to join us, lots to talk about. Another boring weekend in the NFL we can touch on. Some guy, Roethlisberger, of course, retired, and now I guess all the quarterbacks are like, well, if this dude's retiring, I got to join suit. So some kid named Brady is apparently hanging it up, says he's hanging it up. I
remember him. He was Drew Henson's backup at Michigan.
I was going to say that. Drew Henson's still
That's
playing,
exactly right. I think that, yeah. I think that, well, we'll see. I don't think the door is completely closed on Tom Brady playing in the NFL next year.
That's not a good take, Ironhead.
Yeah, we'll see.
You betting on that?
I'm not betting on it, but I don't think that the way he's wording everything.
He always does that.
Yeah, but he it's focusing on other things. I don't want to dial in on that, whatever it is. But
you know what he wants to do. You know exactly what he wants to do.
Yeah, he wants to play for the Steelers and get them another Super Bowl.
Correct.
And I get it. I get it.
He wants to have his agent send a fax that says I'm back.
I think it has something to do with I want to do Giselle. That's what he wants to do. I mean, that's what his rest of his life is entailing.
Well, that's pretty much it.
That's a hell of a job. You better get a lifetime contract on that one.
That and enjoying his avocado toast, I guess.
Speaking of boring basketball last night at the Jordan Center, Yawn Fest at the BJC between Penn State and Iowa. We can touch on that. Speaking of Yawn Fest between Penn State and Iowa, we can touch on the wrestling meet that was this past Friday. Of course, the Nittany Lions wrestling team will be back in action this Friday in the Jordan Center meet against Ohio State, and then we'll finish off the Big Ten portion of the dual meet schedule on Sunday afternoon against Nebraska at a noon start. It is also the Pink Zone game on Sunday for Lady Lion basketball, and always a meaningful game and an impactful game for that program. And again, that is coming up on Sunday. And the beloved Penguins take on the hated Capitals tonight. So always good fun in the NHL. And the Flyers.
Big win for the Flyers on Saturday.
Yeah, Flyers' big playoff push continues.
They beat the Kings, who went on and beat the Penguins the next day. So, I mean, what's that saying to you?
No, that's clearly the Flyers
move in the eastern part of the state. So
Flyers are making their move into.
All right, Ironhead. This is in my reason 1,182nd reason to hate a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
What?
Somebody said Tom Brady will not let Ben Roethlisberger have his day in Canton. Yeah, and they were mad about that. It was an honest to God opinion of somebody.
Oh yeah.
It just blows my absolute mind.
No, it's unbelievable. Brady does not want to concede the spotlight to Big Ben. It is just amazing. He's been like that his whole career.
It's unbelievable. He couldn't even give Big Ben his own day in Canton. Yeah, that's what he was worried about. That's exactly why he retired. Oh, Ben retired? I got to get out of here.
He said he was going to go another 5 years, and all of a sudden, Big Ben retires, and he's like, I don't want Big Ben to steal the spotlight. That's clearly what happened.
All right, so I have an honest question for both of you.
All right, I have a completely dishonest answer. I'm going to lie through my teeth. Go ahead.
Okay, so people were saying that Brady is Brady. He'll never be anything like, and I completely agree with that.
I don't know. See, I could see him changing his name as he gets into his older years.
People say that he's always played for a discount, because he doesn't need the money, because he's independently wealthy, because of his wife. How much does that play into his teams being that much more competitive? Now, I'm not taking anything away from Tom Brady and what he's done, because he still has to read the defense, still has to make the throws, still has to do all this and all that. But he's not hogging up all of the salary cap money like me and you have talked about, Booch, like, Aaron Rodgers, including Roethlisberger, Russell Wilson type where they had to get rid of a lot of their stars to pay their quarterbacks. Do you think that that had something to do with how competitive his teams were for the last 22 years that he was playing? It has to be a big thing. If you can afford to have one more player than another team, It has to change the dynamic.
It may have factored in, but it is hard to make a strong case for that to me when you look at those Patriots rosters. You go back to like the Steelers teams of the 70s, right? I mean, and I love Terry Bradshaw and Frank, but I mean, they had what is it? They're up to like, is it 14 Hall of Famers or something from those 70s Steelers teams? How many Hall of Famers did Tom Brady play with in New England? I mean, there might be a couple, but there's not a lot. I mean, Randy Moss for I'm saying
I know what you're
for
saying.
any kind of extended period.
I was amazed at what he had done in his career with what he had. You know what I mean? But you can afford to pay maybe a defensive lineman or a defensive back a little bit more money with the company.
I'm not saying it didn't factor in at all, but it's not like the Patriots went out and surrounded him with
I don't think he liked that.
Yeah, just not premier receivers, but I mean, I'm hard pressed to name another, and maybe I'm just blanking here. There are some others that I think will get some consideration, but I don't think there's anybody that he played with more than a couple of years that you would consider a lock for the Hall of Fame. Yeah, even you had Ty Law, you had Will Ford. Yeah, right. I mean, there were, but there's not a lot. I mean, it's not like Joe Montana's tems, the Cowboys teams, the Steelers teams. I mean, there are not a lot of, Will Ford, Ty Law.
Even if you look at the 05 and 08 Steelers, there's a handful of Hall of Fame guys I can think of off the top of my head on that team.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. No, I think it's a good point.
So, but yeah, I mean, it factored in, but again, to me, that is part of what kind of separates Brady in my mind, and I think many people's minds when you start trying to compare, and it's never fair or altogether accurate when you're trying to compare different players, on different teams, and especially from different eras. But again, to me, it's pretty hard to argue against Brady being the greatest of all time at that position when you look at what he was able to accomplish with not the level of talent that we've seen the others that we consider the greatest. I mean, Montana obviously had Jerry Rice, and
the Bucs team was the most impressive array of talent around him in his career. Like, that's easy to say.
If I'm thinking about your question, Goon, does Brady taking a discount help them add talent? Maybe a little bit on the margins. Ironically enough, you brought up Randy Moss. Other than, when they added Corey Dillon, he was part of the championship team. When they brought in big name free agents, they maybe had success. They didn't win the titles.
Yeah.
When they make those splashes in free agency. If anything, Tom Brady probably helped his teammates make more than they would have on other NFL rosters, and that allowed Belichick to be very choosy about having his guys, people who would respond to his style of coaching and put up with it, frankly. Because, look, you talk to a lot of guys in the league. I think the majority of NFL players probably would not put up with the demanding environment in New England.
Absolutely not.
So you paid them a little bit more to deal with it, and that's really what Brady
they recruit certain type of players, and that the Belichick way is a guy who can play 4 different positions. I mean, you could just interchange them, outside linebacker, inside linebacker, put him in a defensive end position, like. That's him. That's Bill Belichick's defense to a T. But did they save money by Brady taking a little bit less, more money to be able to spread it around? But they were never maxed on their contracts. I mean, I'm just going to go against about what I said, and that is that if anything, I'm reading that goodbye today, and there's not one mention of the Krafts, Belichick, or the Patriots. Now, I don't know if that was because he was resigning from the Tampa Bay Bucks, and that's going to come into the future. I don't know. Or is there angst between the three parties? I mean, it very well could be. I mean, for him not to release that big of an Instagram statement and not mention them, there must be something in the future, or there is some real animosity between those crews. And but again, I mean, he did give the company discount. He repeatedly done that, But did they use that money? Did they max out? I don't think they ever really were really against the cap.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of the weird things. I mean, he is easily, and there's no argument. I mean, he is easily the best in college. I mean, professional football player I've ever seen. No doubt about it. I mean, it's just his record alone and his longevity and what he was doing. I mean, he was 44 this past year, and he still was the number 1 ranked quarterback in the league. He going out on his own terms is just amazing. And that's another thing. I mean, that's just football in general. Like, what is it? 1% of high school football players go into the NFL, maybe 5%, but only 1% of those players actually can say, I'm done. Like, Ben was done. Ben physically was done. Tom Brady can still do it, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just crazy to think about. And you were right. You said it earlier. He did say, I think he'd go another 5 years, but there's a lot of turmoil this year. Did you notice that about the Bucs towards the end of the season?
Well,
not just Antonio either, but I mean, I think that Arians was just, I don't know, fed up with the team or something.
It's really hard to hold a Super Bowl champion together. No one was able to create the consistency on their roster in the free agency era from year to year that the Buccaneers were. But even then, like I talked about this after Philly won the Super Bowl. And it was kind of a similar situation. I have a great book about the 85 Bears. And it goes into a lot about what happened to that team after they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And everybody taking endorsement deals and everybody, looking at what everybody else was making. And all of a sudden the shared mission evaporates and it's all about, what piece of this am I getting and why is that guy getting this much? And it changes your locker room inevitably.
Sort of like how the NIL is going to get us.
Well, and I think you can also see it at the collegiate level because of the extra years that are being given right now with COVID, and that was the thing. Everybody was and listen, injuries for sure played a big part of it in my mind in the Buccaneers' downfall here at the end of the season. Sure. I mean, that was not the same team that they thought they were going to have. But everybody was assuming last year that everybody's coming back, and so it's automatically a great thing. And it's just it is never the same, right? I mean, everybody changes for better or worse, indifferent, but you change from year to year, and the dynamics change. And again, not even necessarily due to endorsements or anything else. It's just different. Some guys are evolving, other guys are losing a half step. All of the different things, somebody, a young hotshot comes in and takes one of the veterans' positions. A veteran, overtakes or fills in it. And again, everybody thought because everybody was coming back as a Super Bowl team, it was almost a lock. And it's just, it's just a very difficult thing to predict how a locker room in a season is going to come together. And again, injuries in a sport like football are always a big part of the equation as well. And again, to me, when you look at the Buccaneers, that's the overriding story of this season was the injuries. But I always go back probably too much to the example with Penn State football from the 78-79 season, because 78, they were obviously a half yard away, inches away from winning the national title, and they were presumed to be,
Suey was
overwhelming favorite to, if not win the title, certainly be right in the mix. And they had all kinds of problems in the offseason, and it just never materialized the way I think just about everybody was envisioning that 79 season to go for Penn State. And, we're watching a little bit of the Big Ten's highlighting some of the top matches from this past weekend. And it's the same thing with Iowa. And again, injuries there with Spencer Lee, but everybody's back from a national championship team. But the other part of it too is the other teams are changing, and sometimes for the better, right? Like that, Penn State obviously bringing in Drew Hildebrand and Max Dean from last year. This is an improved Penn State team, and Iowa had everybody back again. Spencer Lee obviously is a huge loss, in that lineup. But it's just there's a different dynamic. Some guys are taking a step up, some are taking a step back, and that's just always the case. Again, in any sport at any level, when you go from one year to the next, it's not a guarantee that there's just going to be a continued upward trajectory for everybody or for a team that has everybody back.
I know that there's obviously a hate with Iowa and Penn State, like when it comes to wrestling, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about it to really understand it, but I'm reading a lot of the social media stuff, and Iowa Hawkeye would release their on your Facebook feed, your Twitter feed, something like that would come up, or somebody shared it, and you just read the comments, and I did not understand the level of hate from Iowa to Penn State, and it explains why football, Iowa plays at Penn State. We're yada yada yada. We go out there to play football, and they think that's wrestling. And reading these comments, and I was like, so explain to me how the hell Penn State we're mercenaries. Is it because of guys coming in and jumping in off the portal and wrestling for us?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. There's a couple of things at play here. And listen, it was interesting. Afterward, Dan Gable actually came back to the Penn State locker room. He wasn't in the locker room, but was sitting out in the hall. And I was going back to grab my food and just wait for everybody to go to the bus. And Dan was talking with a couple of the wrestlers and a couple of the assistants, and was wanting to see Cale, and they talked briefly. But one of the things that he said, which I just thought was interesting, because I think Cale said, why is everybody here so angry? From the time we walked in, he goes, I get not wanting us to win. He goes, but they were angry, like hostily, visibly upset before the meet even began. And what Dan Gable said is listen, they in part because of what we were able to do when I was here, but that there is a sense of entitlement to winning championships. And they are furious that anybody else other than them is winning championships, let alone at a clip like Penn State is. The interesting thing is, and listen, if we're going to be honest, it's one of the things that drives me crazy about politics, and I think you're starting to see it. Not starting. It's always been there in sports, but it's if there is a guy that is talking a lot of smack and he's on your team, it's good for the sport and you love it. This is confidence, man. Why do you guys have a problem with confidence? But somebody on the other team and they're beating you, right?
Bush League.
Right? Chiefs fans today, Chiefs fans Joe Burrow, come on, man. Grow up. Dude. Meanwhile, Patrick Mahomes' wife and brother, whatever it is, listen, they're just celebrating, man. They're caught up in the moment. And I to be fair, I think if the shoe was on the other foot, right? If Iowa had 3 transfers that were in their lineup, and by the way, they have 2. But if they had 3 and they had 2 that were new to this year, and Penn State had won the title last year, and Iowa was looking to make a move, and you're dealing with an injury to one of your stars. If you're a Penn State fan, again, if you're reversing it, Penn State fans are saying the same thing. They're like, Iowa couldn't beat us, so they went out and got. It's just the nature of fans. It's
I got Pennsylvania kids.
When your team is doing it, it's cool. That's the way it is. That's how you win, man. You got a problem with winning, suck it up. And if your team's not doing it and it's hurting your team, well, then that's just not the right way. The truth is, and we've talked about this, as we move forward, and it's not just Penn State, Iowa, anybody else, if you are not actively re-recruiting your team. I mean, we've talked about this how often with football, but this is across the board now.
Yeah.
You have to be re-recruiting your team each year, and no guarantees you can re-recruit and do everything right with a kid, and for whatever reason. Yeah, he may want to go back to his hometown. Nick Sirianni wanted to go back to Rutgers and create an opportunity for himself there, and cashed in, by the way. became the first national champion in Rutgers history.
So I got to ask the experts'
Yeah.
opinion.
I gotta go.
The Ironhead, longtime voice of Penn State wrestling. Very few people can speak as credibly on this as you can. Goon and I talked about this a little bit on Thursday. So there is definitely a dynamic, like you said, where Iowa thinks they are the Vanderbilts and Oklahoma State is the Morgans, and they think Penn State is the Clampetts.
Yeah.
Nice.
We are like trailer trash that won the lottery.
We're
okay?
not like trailer.
Yep.
We are.
So there's that. Is it more that just that we have the audacity to win in a sport that Iowa should be dominating? Or is it more like, let's say it wasn't Penn State. Let's just say it was Ohio State or Minnesota or whatever, some other team that is good at wrestling but has not won a ton of titles traditionally. Yep. But they're not coached by an Iowa State guy. Is it that perfect storm of the fact that it's not just somebody rolling up and all of a sudden they got a nicer car than you do in the Richie Rich neighborhood, but it's also an Iowa State guy? Like, do they care about that? They think of Kale as a Cyclone?
I don't know for sure, but I don't think that's really it. In part, why I don't think that is because Dan Gable is an Iowa State guy.
Okay,
that's where Dan Gable wrestled. So the fact that you had both of these
it's different though,
great
when you
coaches,
convert the enemy and he's playing for your team
for sure.
Yeah.
But no, I think I really do think I don't know that it would matter if it was Penn State, Virginia Tech, North Carolina State. If I think if any other school got on this type of a roll, again, there's going to be frustration, and I think that turns into anger from the fan base.
Those are some pissed off people out there in
But
Iowa. I never realized how angry their fans
Kale
are.
has overtaken Dan Gable
Angry
and taken their wrestling mantle away. They have to hate Kale Sinners because it's like he's the only one who can even compare and is actually better than Dan Gable. And as a coach right now, he's like Ironhead said, he's taken their baby away. I mean, it's no longer in Iowa City; it's in State College, PA, the Mecca, and they can't handle it.
Yeah, and again, I mean,
even their national title was tarnished last year because of how our guys wrestled in the final.
Yeah, it was so great.
That's how they hated that.
I truly have never seen a fan base less happy with winning a team national title in our sport in wrestling. I mean, it really was amazing to see the just utter dejection from the Iowa fans as they were walking out, and there weren't a lot of fans there last year, so understandably, most of the ones that were there are relatives, family members of the kids that were competing, and so you understand outside of Spencer Lee's parents and relatives why everybody's nobody else individually was able to accomplish the goal, but
that was an insane thing.
Yeah,
and there's that the other day. I mean, they were just so. You're right. What you just said, Gable said to Kale, explains. It's like, I turned that television on. I was like, Jesus.
And listen, at the end of the day, I don't know that it really matters, and I don't know the fans that are going to feel strongly one way or the other are going to care. But just for the point of record, Max Dean sought out Penn State because I've read a couple of things, and I really have stayed away from the message boards, but people are, you've got to check this out. So on the way back from Iowa, I was reading through some of the message board stuff from the last few weeks. And again, really, I haven't, and it hasn't necessarily even been purposely, I'm not going to rate it. There's other things on my plate, and it's just not something I've spent time doing. But with that being the only match on Friday and the number of people that were telling me I had to check this out or that out, the one thing I will say, because there were comments to the effect of, Kale, there was actually even a column from, and I'm forgetting the guy that wrote it, his name, but there was a column saying that in essence, and everything was skewed to make it sound as horrible as it could for Cal and Penn State in terms of just how ugly and unseemly things have to be at Penn State for you to bring in a guy like Max Dean to dethrone one of your wrestlers, right? So that, and the point they were making, and it's not a bad one on the surface, is that, listen, you committed to Michael Beard. He was an All-American for you last year, and you decided that wasn't good enough, and so you brought in Max Dean. The thing is, Max Dean came to Cal, and it was much the same thing with Greg Kirkley when he left Ohio State, because Penn State had Seth Nevels, and those were the two examples they were using. This is just ruthless. You know, when Ironman transferred into Iowa, it was that they had a hole at, and yeah, they had a hole at 41, but they had guys there. Like, they were undercutting the guys that were on the roster. And again, in both the case with Michael Beard and Seth Nevels, it wasn't a situation where Cal was going out and trying to upgrade. It was, you had elite kids. I mean, Greg Kirkley was the #1 overall recruit in the country. He tells you that he wants to come, visit and talk to you and come to your school. You're not going to say, no, forget about it. We already have a kid. I mean, you're going to at least talk.
So if Justin Fields decided he wanted to go to Iowa instead of Ohio State,
they
would have said, no, we committed to this clone of Ricky Stanzi we've got in here.
And listen, and that was kind of the like, Caleb Young is a terrific wrestler, and he really is. I mean, you're talking about a 3-time All-American, likely going to be a 4-time All-American for Iowa, but not a national championship contender. If Iowa had, the top 57-pounder in the country come and say, hey, I really want to come in. If you think Tom Brands or any other college coach is going to say, no, I need to be committed to the kid. All of these coaches, their job is to create the best team they can, right? And it's the same with all of these schools. And listen, what sports is about it at any level, but certainly once you get to Division I college level, and really, from high school level on, right? It is competition. Like, that's the name of the game. If a top running back transfers into State High, and State College has a kid that's rushed for 1,000 yards each of the last 2 seasons, again, Coach Lentell's not saying to the new hotshot, hey, listen, why don't you go to St. Joseph's, because we're committed to this kid, right? Like, I mean, that's the nature of the beast, and you cannot like it.
Stayed committed to Wally Pipp.
Absolutely correct.
What a mess that organization it is. They made a commitment to Wally Pipp.
He's going to cost them in the end. Lou Gehrig is.
That's it is funny.
Gets hurt too much. Doesn't play through pain.
I can find some fault with the Penn State media beat, but one thing I am glad none of our prominent writers do, and I've seen other schools do this, is just stake out these entirely insane clown hot takes about Penn State. Like, I will never forget after Penn State went out to Rutgers for the first time as a member when they were a member of a Big Ten in 2014, there was a guy who wrote an entire column for NJ.com. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think he was the where would Saquon Barkley fit in this loaded backfield guy. But he wrote a column complaining that when James Franklin did his post-game press conference, he did not open by complimenting how hard the Rutgers players competed and how loud the fans were. There's like a serious unironic take that this guy had. And it's the same thing. Like, I don't know why you just can't take your L gracefully. Like, the thing in life is sometimes you're going to win and sometimes you're going to lose. If you're Iowa, you have been on the other side a whole hell of a lot. So just take your L gracefully. Like, don't come out and act like Penn State taking transfers makes them somehow like unique or inferior to your program. Because to your point, Ironhead, like, is Kirk Ferentz only going to try to recruit a 5-star recruit at a position once every 5 years? Like, if you get AJ Epinesa to come to Iowa, that means don't recruit any more good defensive ends for the next 4 years.
You got one.
Yeah. You committed.
By
to
the
AJ.
way, just a quick other interesting, maybe not interesting, but I thought it was interesting, little side note. So we love, there's a little kind of hole-in-the-wall diner, Hamburg Station 2 in Iowa City. It is phenomenal breakfast. And presidential candidates have been going there for decades with the Iowa caucuses. This is like one of the big stops. And
Kale's running, isn't he?
There are pictures of of presidents and presidential candidates from over the years all over the walls there. And we actually sat. We ate a couple of meals there. Both of our meals, we sat at the presidential table, which is a corner, and it's like a little tribute to Ronald Reagan in that corner. And so we're coming out of there on Saturday morning, heading back to the hotel, getting ready to leave. And I don't know for sure if he was going there, but that's my presumption. But Kirk Ferentz is just walking up the street by himself, bitterly cold, breath coming out. Looking over, like, that's Kirk Ferentz, just by himself, a la Jopa, walking along campus, but nobody else around. And car stopped at the stop sign, and he was waiting for the car waving by. He's like, thank you, and goes on his way. But yeah, again, all of these coaches, their job is to put out the best team they can and to develop all of the kids as best they can. And again, it's like it or not, this is going to be the way college sports across the board is moving forward. You're going to have guys transferring in and out. And yeah, Penn State is going to be an attractive destination. If there is a weight where, actually, even if there's a weight where they have an All-American, but I mean, if there's a weight where they clearly have a need, yeah, there are going to be guys at other schools that may want to be part of a championship team or, contending team anyway, that may, look and transfer in. And again, Austin DeSanto wanted, he was at Drexel and obviously wanted to be, part of something bigger, and certainly has become part of something bigger at Iowa. But it's, same thing with Jaden Ironman Missouri's a terrific program, right? And Ironman developed there. That was the one thing. The one writer was, but Iowa, DeSantos wasn't developed collegiately until he got to Iowa. Well, Ironman was. And again, the fact that Drew Hildebrandt and Max Dean were developed to whatever degree that Hildebrandt obviously was developed at Central Michigan. There's no debating that. And Max Dean, again, 3 years 2 years of competing and 4 years really of being in that Cornell program. Hard to say that that's not where he developed. But again, when you go to a school, part of why Max Dean transferred here is he felt that he could take another step. And Drew Hildebrandt, same thing. They felt they could take another step with the coaching staff here and being in the room that in the environment that's created here. And listen, I was going to get kids in much the same way. And, some of these other top schools now, North Carolina State is going to be an attractive with the location there and with the way they're developing talent and contending. Again, that's just going to be the nature of the beast. But you might have guys transfer out of Iowa or out of Penn State as well, and you will. I'm obviously Penn State has had guys transfer out because they want to start somewhere else and they're not seeing the opportunity here. But you at some point, and I'm not predicting anything, I'm not providing any inside information, anything like that. But it's going to happen. You're going to have, everybody's presuming all of the national champions are always going to be back at the school they won. That's not necessarily going to be the case moving forward. And again, for a wide variety of reasons, it may not be anything against the school where they're having success. It may be, hey, I want to see if I can do it somewhere else. It may be there's a girlfriend at another school. It may be the NIL. Yeah, it may be the NIL opportunities or they feel are better at another school. It may be, listen, you look at this Penn State roster, it is largely out of state. There's only one. Bo Bartlett went to Wyoming Seminary, but he's from Tucson, Arizona. Carter Starachi is the only starter of the 10 that is from Pennsylvania and did his high school wrestling in Pennsylvania. 1 out of 10. Maybe you get a guy that Greg Kirkfleet his senior year sees what. And again, don't read anything into this. This is
It's
this is
reading into
completely
it.
hypothetically, because I don't want people. But maybe Greg Kirkfleet, after a couple of years, has success here. But he's like, man, Minnesota has that great legacy of heavyweights. I want to follow in the heels of Gable Steveson. Appreciate everything Penn State did, but this is where Brock Lesnar and I want to go the WWE route, so I go to Minnesota, or maybe. Again, you have
Hot take from Ironhead. Put it out there.
Byers said Kirkfleet transferring.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
but listen, you can
Ironhead.
have kids transfer for a wide variety of reasons, and it could be just to be, I want to enjoy 1 year with my hometown fans being able to come out and see me at the school I'm competing at. And again, at some point, you're going to have somebody big from Penn State or Iowa, after having success at one of those schools, transfer out. And you're certainly going to have plenty of kids transferring into those programs as we move forward. And again, that's the way it is going to be across the board in college athletics.
One trend I've picked up on, because I it's impossible to cover college football now and not have to keep tabs on and know a lot about what's happening with the transfer portal, the way it's affecting your program, the way it's affecting programs around the country. And so one of the things that I have found interesting is reading Q&As with guys who have gone into the portal and go somewhere else and hear their explanation for why they decided to leave where they were at. Sometimes they transfer twice over the course of their career. And one thing that I've picked up on is there's definitely been a generational shift in attitudes to the way current young athletes think about themselves, think about the sport. It's kind of reflective. In general, younger generations tend to view their relationship with their alma mater, this is across the board, as way more transactional. Like if you talk to, not just Penn State, anywhere, alumni from a school from 60s, 70s, 80s, they feel this deep sense of obligation and gratitude for the opportunities that opened up for them as a result of going to college. As the price of college went up, as the amount of debt you had to take on went up, and the cost-benefit equation started to get a lot murkier than it was for somebody who spent a few $1,000s in the 70s and then made a bunch of money in the defense industrial sector for the next 50 years, as that all started to shift.
Decaf.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's a great point.
That view changed, and it's been reflected in college sports, and I think a lot of older fans don't pick up on it. So when they see a kid transfer, they automatically assume, because they're focused on their program and their school, that there's something wrong inside the program.
Yep.
Why would this kid want to leave? And your examples are great, Ironhead, because you are correct. Someone is going to have success and still leave, and the impulse is going to be what's wrong at Penn State.
Yeah,
and that's just the wrong way to look at it. I think you just need to be prepared for a much, much higher degree of impermanence with the commitment of an athlete to their school. It's just the way it's going to be, and it's going to be the same if you paid as much attention to Michigan or Arizona State or Oregon as you do Penn State. You would see the same things, and you'd be wondering what's wrong with insert school here.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Not bad.
And I never do decaf.
No. Ironhead, a couple things about the match on Friday.
Yeah.
You'll find these hilarious. So they both involve my wife. She asked if the two coaches from Iowa are special. When she said the one is like locked behind the bench, and I was like, yeah, because they don't let him out because he would probably jump into the ring. And two is on the mat. Sorry, she asked if when he was over there.
I like that.
When
Same
he was
difference.
over in the when on Kale's review, when Rams was over there trying to yap in referee's ear, she was like, I think that guy's on meth. Like he's going to his face a lot. He had all this red around his face. He's licking his lips like he's chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
And she was like, this guy is out of control.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then I'm sitting there and I was like,
the red face is really incredible.
It's insane. And then you sit there and you're like, why is he even over there near on Penn State's? I mean, it's just, they're so easy to just get so mad at. And then I told her that if this turns into a tie, it goes into a head coach's wrestling match. She wanted the tie so bad. She wanted to see Kale kick the crap out of Meth Boy.
Oh, boy.
I mean, she's like, oh, and I was like, yeah. I mean, they go, the coaches got to wrestle. She's like, you're kidding. I mean, it lasted about a second before she was like, shut up. But she got a good laugh out of it.
I think you just suggested an incredible innovation.
I think I want to match up Ironhead. It should be the play-by-play guy.
Oh,
I know they have a colored commentator.
I don't like that idea
I
at
heard
all.
the color commentator. There was an all-American there.
Yeah,
who was there?
Four-time Mark Ironside.
Who's doing play-by-play?
He would crush me. Steve Grace, who is a great guy.
You should get him.
I don't think either of us want any part of a singlet.
Warwick the Shore, Atlantic City March.
I don't think either one of us want any part of a singlet.
I'll
go ahead and speak for for Steve. I think the last thing anybody with either of those schools wants is either of us out there trying to win anything for them. We're both behind the mic for a reason.
You'd both be going to the backup play-by-play guys. You guys recovered from your muscle pulls and back injuries.
Long
Ironhead be like, oh, this is our backup commentator. It's David Taylor. Yep, congratulations, David's now.
Oh, speaking of Wally Pip.
Oh,
the.
No, but it was pretty funny because Carrie was like, she was really wanting Kale to start smacking the Brands brothers around.
Let's talk a little bit about the basketball game last night too, because that really was just a fun. I don't know that it's going to propel Penn State to anything. I don't know that it's going to lead to any kind of downfall for Iowa or anything like that. But just in and of itself, man, that was a fun game. If you're a Penn State fan, to be able, it is not the easiest thing in the world. I mean, I know everybody's, you just you put it behind you and you move on. When you are that close to winning in regulation, and right, I mean, you see this all the time, where a team ties it up.
What a hell of a play, though!
In the last 10 seconds or so, then that team, and it happened to Penn State. Then you cannot convince me that the three-pointer at the end of the first overtime didn't directly lead to Penn State's momentum run to the second overtime and the win. But, for Penn State to withstand the emotional, and I mean, you could see it. Penn State, understandably, right, is kind of dejected as they're walking off the court at the end of regulation, and the Iowa guys are going nuts, high-fiving. Yep. I mean, the energy is clearly there. They're fired up. I continue to be impressed just with the way these guys play and compete. Again, to me, that was a really good, gutsy win just in and of itself last night at the Jordan Center, and a really fun game to go back and kind of dissect and pick apart different things. There's no question Seth Lundy is a difference maker on this team, but for Harrar to put together the game that he did, and that's the other thing we keep talking about. But this team they get different guys contributing. I mean, there are guys that are consistently just showing up big, but it's different guys, different nights in different ways contributing to what this team is able to do. And I get it. It's a 500 team. We're not talking about a Big Ten championship team, but it's pretty special.
You said it early in your opening statement, and that is that they have a short memory, because you don't come back from that overtime. You're getting in that in overtime.
Yeah.
Especially when Iowa tipped it within 0.1 seconds. It was unbelievable. And I was screaming. I told my wife, I haven't seen them play like that ever in my life. It was awesome. But then having the short memory that they did, specifically the short memory of that horrific effort they put in against Indiana.
Yeah, that first half was just inexplicable. That is the one.
Anything like it in my life.
I haven't either.
But for them to recover in the second half of that Indiana game and make it a game, but then to come out against Iowa, that is Coach Shrewsbury's doing a hell of a job. He really, really is. Yeah. And and you're right, it's passing on. It's not one guy. They're moving it around of who's hot that night, who's doing this. They're all playing their roles right.
Yeah, and you know what it is? It's and this just pops into my head because there was a lot of talk. If you watch some of the and also on the ride back, I was watching some of the feature stuff with Iowa, but Iowa wrestling, and what is happening right now in that basketball program is accountability, right? Micah Shrewsbury is holding these players accountable, and they're holding themselves and their teammates accountable. And that might sound like a
Yeah.
obvious and simple thing, but to truly hold yourself and your teammates accountable, where hey, that wasn't 100% effort. Like, you don't just reach out for the ball, you dive for it, right? Like, there's a difference, and sometimes you might not even recognize it, right? Like, there's very few of us that truly give 100% effort every day, right? There are days where I just got to get through, man. But if you truly hold yourself accountable, it's like, well, no, that's not doing service to me. It's not doing service to my coworkers, whatever, right? And to have true accountability, and to and I think that's what happened at the halftime of that Indiana game. It's like, listen, that isn't what we've been teaching. That isn't what you guys want to be playing. And they went out and played a much better second half. But I think, again, last night to me was just a really cool, fun experience. If you're a Penn State fan, to be able to watch and enjoy. And it does feel like they're in the early stages of building something that could be pretty special here under Coach Shrewsbury.
I agree, man. They played a hell of a game. They fought. They were tough. And that's Iowa. Iowa's not going to come in here and get smacked around. That's a tough team also. I mean, that's what they're
how in God's name is that not a reversal? I'm sorry. They're showing the Warner Max Dean. I for the life of me, I do not understand how in the world you can review that. And I honestly thought the only debate was whether or not it was 2 near fall points or 4. And for it to not even be a reversal is just astounding. There is zero control there by Jacob Warner. It's just insane.
How bad was that refereeing on Friday?
Yeah, Angel Rivera, historically, he's very inconsistent, and that's the biggest problem, right?
As an athlete, that's what you hate the most.
Yes, it really is, and you hear it all the time in baseball. It's like, well, yeah, that guy's strike zone is outside, but I know it's outside. It's like that all the time, or it's high, low, whatever. If you know what you're getting, right? Like, you might not be happy about it, but hey, that's the way it is. If this guy calls stalling, we take 3 steps back. We know the stall call is coming. So be it. The frustrating thing, and it wasn't just Friday night, and I will tell you, Penn State and Iowa fans were united in this. Everybody kind of head dropped when you saw that Angel Rivera was the official. And I think he's a fine person. He's just he is very inconsistent in the way he calls matches, and you saw it on Friday night. In one bout, the first time a guy goes off the edge, stall warning. And again, I don't have a problem with that call if you're calling it every time. But there would be other bouts where a guy would back out 4 times and no stall call at all. And not even against Penn State or Iowa. I mean, fans are always, he's against. I don't think he was against or for anybody. I just think it is really hard as a coaching staff and as a team to know what you should be doing when you get a guy that is calling things as inconsistently as Angel Rivera does. And again, this wasn't a new phenomenon with him. This has been a source of frustration for many in the sport for a long time. But the call at the end of the first period, where there's no points for Max Dean, when he clearly has complete control, is just mind-boggling to me. It's called a Winn-Dixie, but his legs are controlling the shoulder and the arm of Jacob Warner, and you see, Warner's arms are both out like this. He has no control whatsoever. It's just insane that that's not called a reversal. But to Max's credit, he battled through it and overcame it, and ultimately sealed the irony
victory of him squealing under my favorite wrestling move, the bow and arrow.
Yeah.
It just amazes me.
Unbelievable, their reaction when he was trying to get that bow and arrow involved, and they knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And they are hammering him. And you don't see this, Ironhead. You see this as a fan. I just laugh. The man in the white shirt just sitting there. everybody on both sides is jumping around like madmen, and Kale just sits there. He just sits there, yo, yada, 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 yada. And then a lot of the times in a lot of the overtime matches, they show the Iowa guys jumping up and down, and then it gets reversed. And you see them just like their souls just leave their bodies. It's great. This is unbelievable what he does here.
It's amazing.
Screaming.
It's amazing to me that the inconsistency part with Rivera. That must be known, right? They must know that in the Big Ten offices.
Yeah,
how do you let someone with that kind of a sketchy reputation for that
is a good
officiate
question.
this match? It seems insane to me.
It seemed insane to me too. I really don't know.
Oh, that's just it right here. Right? You can just see Iowa's hearts just ripping out of their souls are leaving their body right there.
You hate to see it.
Yeah, it was horrible. There you go. He just realized that I can't believe I got involved in this.
Yeah.
I can't believe. Why am I doing this? Leave me alone. That
Real
was
quick,
an unbelievable match to watch.
We're talking about the different halves for Penn State basketball against Indiana. Have you ever seen a quarterback put together two different halves the way Patrick Mahomes did in that AFC Championship game?
Yeah, Donovan McNabb.
Stop.
But that first half was out of this world good. And, at one point, I think it was like midway through the second quarter, Jim Nantz is like, may have been earlier than that. Yeah. He's like, people that were worried that the Chiefs might, have a bit of a hangover after the big win last week or whatever. You don't have to worry at all. And, I'm right there with him. I'm like, well, yeah, no, this team has just picked up right where it left off. And the thing is, with Joe Burrow, you say, no lead is insurmountable, but I'm looking at that 21-3, and I'm like, I think Burrow is capable of putting together a bunch of touchdowns, but Mahomes is just going to keep. Yeah, even if you get a stop now, right? Like, you're not going to be able to score enough to make up the difference, and it was just crazy to me to watch that second half unfold the way it did, and Mahomes struggle. Yeah.
Him trying to call the imaginary
different ways he
did
did
the first half. It's like, where was his mind at?
Yeah, that whole situation was just strange.
That was early era Andy Reid with his clock management, calling a timeout before.
But then Mahomes' decision to throw it,
timeout.
Yeah, behind the goal line, and then that just that whole sequence. Now, mind you, at the time I'm watching it, I'm not thinking, "Oh, this is a prelude to the disaster that's coming in the second half." I'm thinking, well, so now they're going to score.
It's going to be a 30-point.
Yeah, they're going to score 3 points less, so it might be an 18-point win instead of a 21-point win. It was just bizarre to me to see a guy that has delivered as consistently as Mahomes has and put together the previous three halves of football that he had just completely fall apart in that second half. And listen, there were many times where he tried to give the game away before the Bengals finally took it. It just, I don't know. It was just crazy to me to watch.
His first touchdown, rolling to his right and just throwing an absolute 412-mile-an-hour freaking fastball.
Yeah.
That might have killed somebody if he didn't catch that, if it hit somebody in the back of the freaking head. That ball was absolutely gunned in there, and he just makes that catch. His momentum of how hard the ball was thrown it was ridiculous. But then what happened after that halftime screw up? He had nothing. Late the game, fumbling that last play before tying the game. It's like, dude, you have no understanding what you're doing right now. It's like he looked like a nervous rookie out there in that second half. And great call saying just the difference in the two. It was unbelievable watching him.
It really was. And to me, it's just inexplicable. I'm sure the Bengals. I'm not. There was a time where I would have fancied myself to be savvy enough to figure out the adjustments, and I'm sure the Bengals made some adjustments, but adjustments that would have confused Mahomes to the degree that he looked confused and into the decisions that he made. I find it hard to believe. It just was. It's just like somebody just hit the switch off.
Yeah.
And he just went from on as on could be to just like a bumbling
the sort of sloppy
Fool. I mean, it's
mistakes
just
he
crazy.
never makes.
Never makes.
And despite all that, to your point, if they just kick the field goal at the end of the first half, it's all immaterial.
Yeah. No, it's
That was classic Andy.
It was wild to not throw into the end zone there. To me, it felt like the Chiefs got overconfident.
Absolutely.
And felt like they didn't need the points.
Yeah.
So they knew the touchdown was the kill shot. They thought they could get cute by, forcing Cincy to defend the end zone and then trying to go to the swing pass. And it cost them a chance at 3 points that would have won the game in regulation.
Yeah. Yeah, I just
unbelievable,
unreal.
I guess. But again, I go back to even Boy Genius in the second game blowing all his reviews and stupid. You're never going to overturn a quarterback sneak.
Tart drops that interception. That's the difference in the game. Difference in the game.
You can never really sit there and say it during the game and say that's going to be the game changer. It just felt like it.
You knew it.
Yeah.
And it was like that was their shot to do it.
Yeah.
But in his defense, Ramsey had a pick six and 4 plays later, and he doesn't take it to the house.
Yep.
So it could be on. I mean, if San Fran wins that game, they're pointing back at Jalen Ramsey saying, "Oh, that was the turning point." Yada yada yada.
Fair point.
But I am a Bengals fan. I just do not like Odell Beckham Jr., Jalen Ramsey. I mean, they're just unlikable dudes, man. But I like Von Miller. I like Aaron Donald. I really like Stafford. But Boy Genius running around out there, I can't stand it. I mean, he's so rah-rah, and the NFL has him set up to be the new Johnny Gruden. Hey, why don't you start making some weird faces on the sideline? We're really push this. Your image and like this stuff. It just drives me absolutely bonkers how he runs on the field. Guys are hurt. Guys are celebrating. He's out there. Like, come on, man. You've been there before. Act like it. That's just the old school Goon. Get off my lawn.
Do you think they'll score more than 3 points this time?
Where?
In the Super Bowl.
Man, I'll tell you what. I had some people in that, what was it, 9-3 or 17-3 was the final?
It was
there was like 5 point-changing
score.
scores. Yeah. Imagine being in one of those point-changing boards.
I do think this is a really intriguing Super Bowl matchup, though, right? I mean, just the two quarterback stories alone make it really intriguing. The fact that the Rams are home. I wonder how many 49ers fans are going to work their way into SoFi for the.
Wow, they were a lot of them. They were loud.
Oh yeah, no, they were there in force.
Count. That's impressive.
Yeah, no, it was.
And then this hit too after the play out Tart.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of Beckham Jr. crying his way out of 2 places, and now he's going to be a hero winning the Super Bowl. And it's about him. It's all about him.
I think what we're going to find out with that Rams defensive line, I think Burrow obviously has proven his toughness and his ability. Can a quarterback win a Super Bowl while taking 10+ sacks?
He didn't get sacked.
No, but you think that Rams team isn't going to sack him?
Now, if you listen to
I think they're going to sack him at a rate that will shame the Bills.
Yeah, but me and him were saying, I was saying that about the Bengals versus the Chiefs.
Yeah, but I think the Rams are a different. I think that's a different level.
I know that the Niners have an okay offensive line. The right side of the offensive line is not that great, but they controlled that. Every scenario he and I talked about Thursday, out the window. Both of our picks were completely wrong. We said there's no way.
We tried to uphold your standard.
They can't protect Burrow, nor can they protect Garoppolo. And that was what we're talking about. But it wasn't. Neither one of those things really.
Yeah.
Or the big plays in the game because their D lines didn't do it until I shouldn't say that until it was needed. Aaron Donald came through with that quarterback rush and interception.
Yeah,
to end the game.
We'll see. I think it's going to be a long game in some ways for Joe Burrow, but it doesn't mean I think he will take a pretty good beating. Doesn't mean I don't think he's going to win the game. But I think he's going to know coming out of that game that he was in
I like the new
a pretty
blood
rough
in there.
football
You're
game.
going to have a new quarterback in there making one of these quarterbacks is going to win their first Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I believe that Stafford has put his time in on really, really, really bad Detroit teams. And talk about taking beatings over the years. He's like Ron Jaworski, for God's sakes. Some of the beatings he took.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it should be fun. It should be a good 2 weeks leading up to it. And I'm just jacked up for this Pro Bowl, guys.
Oh, my favorite weekend of the year.
It's the
Yeah,
Super Bowl
everybody
Sunday,
is.
Master Sunday, and Pro Bowl Sunday.
And
That's the way
everybody's
it is.
fired up. Absolutely. Looking forward to it. I won't be here Thursday. I have a commitment at my son's school, so we're doing some reading at his elementary school. So should be a fun weekend, though, coming up. Penn State, again, with the final two Big Ten dual meets of the season with Ohio State at the Jordan Center on Friday night, which is always a fun atmosphere. And then I think a dangerous meet against Nebraska coming off of, again, the fanfare that will be there on Friday night. This is a really good Nebraska team, and I think tournament-wise, a team that could really make some noise at both Big Tens and NCAAs. And with it being an early start on Sunday with the noon start, I think Penn State will win the dual meet, but I will not be surprised if that thing involves a match or two that go unexpectedly to Penn State fans' plans, because, again, I think Nebraska is going to come in really geared up for it, and I just think the schedule is right there for Penn State to look a little flat on Sunday's meet.
There you go.
So, with that, we bid you adieu. We hope you have a wonderful evening, wonderful Wednesday. Goon and Booch will be back on Thursday, and until then,
me and Mailman, actually.
Oh, you and Mailman.
Yep.
Nice.
I got to head to Philly for
Even
work.
better.
Yeah, we're bringing the whole beat squad in, the taxi squad.
Till Thursday. Be good.
Tell email Mike we said hi.
Please do, and be safe.
The leap of faith. Some hesitate, but not you. You don't ask what if. You embrace what's next with open arms. You don't question your decision. You double down. Because you know the thrill is worth it. Introducing the 2022 Telluride Nightfall Edition.
There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube. From live music to exciting new flavors, meet your friends and refuel at your local Quaker Steak and Lube today. Can't slow down? Then order online. Pick up and get back on the road. Find us at thelube.com.
Hi, Johnny Broom here. If you're in the market for a new Hyundai or a pre-owned car, truck, van, or SUV, nobody beats a Blaze Alexander deal. But don't take my word for it.
Hey, Goon says tell him Johnny sent you.
Hey, tell him Johnny sent ya.
Tell him Johnny sent you.
Wait, tell him Juan or tell him Johnny sent you?
Tell him Johnny sent you.
Here at Bill Pickles Tap Room, we say,
tell him Johnny sent you.
And remember,